There exists a peculiar silence buried deep within the plantation records of South Carolina. Not an absence that appears accidental, nor the kind caused by fire, decay, or neglect, but something far more unsettling. A silence so deliberate, so carefully constructed, that it went unnoticed for nearly 2 centuries. Historians did not initially question what was missing. Instead, what disturbed them was the realization that someone had worked tirelessly to ensure that nothing would remain. And at the center of that silence lies a single haunting question. What would a man be willing to do to erase another human being from existence entirely? The low country of South Carolina in the autumn of 1784 carried a strange stillness. The Revolutionary War had ended only months before. Plantations that once thrived now struggled to rebuild their fractured systems. Fields needed tending, wealth needed restoring. Order, above all else, needed to be reestablished. Along the Ashley and Cooper rivers, estates stretched across miles of fertile land, their white-columned houses standing as symbols of control in a world that had briefly slipped from their grasp. It was during this fragile period that a man named Nathaniel Hartwell arrived at Blackstone Plantation. Blackstone was no small estate. Nearly 800 acres of cultivated land, passed down through generations of the Thorne family, it stood as one of the more prominent holdings in the region. Its master, Edmund Thorne, was a man more concerned with stability than curiosity, a man who valued efficiency above all else. Hartwell came not as master, but as overseer, and with that position came power. The plantation records were housed in a separate brick structure beside the main house. Reinforced during the war, it now served as both office and archive. Inside, rows of leather-bound ledgers lined the walls, documents that recorded every transaction, every birth, every death. These were not mere notes. They were law. They defined ownership, value, and existence itself. If a name was written, a person existed. If it was not, they did not. From the beginning, Nathaniel Hartwell proved himself meticulous, almost unnervingly so. He arrived before dawn each morning, often working by lamplight while the rest of the plantation still slept. Every task was recorded, every punishment documented, every birth carefully entered with calculated value, as though life itself could be measured in currency. But it wasn't his precision that stood out. It was his obsession. Hartwell didn't just keep records, he duplicated them. Beyond the official ledgers were secondary journals, verification lists, cross-reference logs, an entire shadow system of documentation that only he controlled. These were kept locked in a chest beneath his desk, inaccessible to anyone else. Even Edmund Thorne found it strange. But strange did not mean dangerous. The plantation prospered, the numbers aligned, the system worked. So Thorne allowed it. And that decision would shape everything that followed. For nearly 2 years, nothing appeared out of place. The plantation stabilized. Crops were harvested, profits returned. On paper, the enslaved population remained consistent, balanced, orderly, perfect. Too perfect. The first crack came in 1786. A traveling merchant named Thomas Prescott arrived at Blackstone, as he often did, carrying goods and stories. Over casual conversation, Prescott mentioned something unusual. He had seen a woman in Charleston, a woman named Ruth, a woman who, according to Blackstone's records, was dead. Edmund Thorne dismissed it at first. Mistaken identity, coincidence, rumor. But something about it lingered, so he confronted Hartwell. The overseer did not hesitate. Calm, certain, unshaken. "The records are correct," he said. And somehow that certainty was enough. But doubt had already taken root. Thorne began reviewing the ledgers more carefully. At first, nothing obvious appeared wrong. Numbers aligned, entries were consistent. Yet when he compared them to memory, things didn't match. Faces he remembered were gone. Names appeared where none should be. Transactions he never authorized were recorded as fact. Each inconsistency was small, explainable, dismissible, but together they formed something else. So Thorne ordered a full inventory, a count of every individual on the plantation. 3 days, name by name, face by face. When it was complete, the numbers matched perfectly. Every person accounted for, every entry confirmed. And yet, the unease remained. Years passed. The world outside grew more volatile. The French Revolution sent waves of fear through the planter class. Then came Haiti, an uprising that shattered every illusion of control. Whispers of rebellion spread across the South. Fear turned into obsession, and Hartwell's system became even more elaborate. Separate ledgers were introduced, categorized, cross-referenced, verified against one another in a web so complex that no single record could stand alone. It looked like control, but in truth, it was concealment. By the late 1790s, others began to notice. Neighboring planters found discrepancies in transactions with Blackstone. Names didn't match, dates conflicted. People seemed to exist in one place and nowhere else. Most ignored it. One man didn't. William Ashford, a lawyer by training, visited Blackstone in 1798. He requested access to the records. Hartwell allowed it, under strict conditions. No copies, no notes, no privacy. Ashford spent hours examining the ledgers, and when he left, he carried with him something he could not explain. Not proof, not evidence, just a feeling that the records were not meant to reveal truth, but to bury it. Still, nothing was done. Not yet. The turning point came in 1805. Edmund Thorne died, and his son inherited everything, including the records. The younger Thorne was different, more observant, more skeptical, and, unlike his father, he remembered. As a child, he had seen faces. He had heard names, and now, as he read the ledgers, those people were gone. Not dead, not sold, just missing. This time, the investigation went further. A clerk from Charleston, Henry Garrett, was brought in. Meticulous, relentless, uncompromising. For 3 months he worked through the records, and what he uncovered changed everything. It wasn't random error, it wasn't carelessness, it was design. A system of falsification so intricate it had gone undetected for over 20 years. People recorded as dead were alive. Others existed under multiple identities, entire histories rewritten. But at the center of it all was one person, a woman. She appeared under different names: Sarah, Mary, Catherine. Each identity lived, each identity died, again and again and again. She was everywhere and nowhere. When confronted, Hartwell finally broke. At 71 years old, he confessed, not with emotion, not with regret, but with precision. He had done it all for her. She had been part of his childhood, a presence that blurred the lines of a rigid world. As they grew older, that connection deepened into something forbidden, something dangerous. In that society, such a bond could destroy him, but for her, it could mean death. So Hartwell made a choice, not to free her, not to reveal her, but to erase her. On paper, she vanished, recorded as dead, sold, transferred, gone. But in reality, she remained, hidden in a small cottage at the far edge of the plantation, alive but unseen, for over 20 years. Hartwell provided everything she needed: food, shelter, protection, but also isolation, silence, erasure. She could not exist, not legally, not publicly, not even historically. When she died in 1803, she was buried in an unmarked grave, and even then, Hartwell continued the lie, because to reveal her would destroy everything. The younger Thorne was horrified. He demanded the grave's location. Hartwell refused. "She has no place in your world," he said, "and none of you deserve to find her." So Thorne made his own choice, not justice, not truth, but silence. The records were burned, the evidence erased, the system dismantled, and the woman was erased again, this time completely. For over a century, nothing remained, until fragments resurfaced, a note in the margin, a forgotten memorandum, a question that refused to disappear. Historians began to piece it together, slowly, carefully, incomplete. They found her traces, but never her name, never her grave, only the echo of a life that someone had tried to erase and failed. Because even now she is remembered, not fully, not clearly, but enough. Enough to ask the question that still lingers. Is it possible to truly erase a person from history? Or does the attempt itself leave behind something that refuses to disappear?